court is now in session for San Andreas versus Jeffrey Juggs. This is case number 21-15762. Would the prosecution please read the charges against Mr. Jeffrey Juggs?
Your Honour, the claim is on August 3rd of this year, Jeffrey Juggs did attempt to murder a peace officer of the city, who was also found to be in possession of police equipment and illegal contraband. His accomplice in this attack was also found in possession of a firearm belonging to the defendant, constituting an illegal transfer of weapons. Therefore, the charges are PC 2102, attempted murder of a peace officer, PC 3207, possession of illegal contraband, PC 2234, criminal possession of police equipment, and PC 3303, illegal sale or transfer of a non-Class 2 firearms weapon.
Mr. Vandeburg, how does your defendant plead? I'm sorry, and I'm able to hear you at this time.
My apologies. Your Honor, in regards to this here, I do have an email from him for his plea. However, being he has not wanting to show up, am I permitted to use whatever he told me in his email?
So initially, he pled not guilty. That's why we're here today. You can go ahead and share that if you want to. I'm not sure it's going to change the outcome, but go ahead.
My client is pleading as based on his email, he's wanting to plead guilty.
All right. Because Mr. Jeffrey Juggs has not shown up to court, and he is not here in person to submit his own plea, at this time, I am going to rule a default judgment. So just so everyone knows what a default judgment is, a default judgment is a ruling granted by a court or a judge. For example, when the defendant is summoned to appear before the court in a case brought by the plaintiff or by a prosecutor, the DA's office in this case, but the defendant fails to respond in a timely manner or is unable to show, then a default judgment can be decided in the case of the plaintiff's favour. So Mr. Jeffrey Juggs, even though he entered a guilty plea, the decision will remain with myself. So at this time, I'm going to ask the state attorney just to go through any evidence that has been submitted and allowed, and I will give a moment for the defence attorney to also comment.
Thank you, Your Honour. Whilst doing his duty and starting a new day defending the city from crime, Officer Sebastian Smith was helping a civilian gain their weapons license. The defendant saw Officer Smith open the door to allow the citizen into an area of MRPD which is restricted to process the license. The defendant rushed into that restricted area, uninvited, pushing past the officer. Officer Smith told him to leave and unlocked the doors so that he could. Officer Smith did not worry or antagonize the defendant, as Exhibit A shows. Even when taken by surprise, Officer Smith acted calmly and told the defendant to leave. The defendant then struck the officer twice with his fists. No thought of leaving, but to attack, unprovoked. The defendant then ran out of MRPD to lie in wait for the unsuspecting officer around a corner, armed with a sawn-off shotgun, shown in Exhibit F. As Officer Smith rounded that corner in pursuit, luckily joined by another brave officer whose testimony is Exhibit E, the defendant, without remorse or care for the officer's life, emptied both barrels into them. The officers had no choice then but to return fire using lethal force. Whilst the defendant was being downed, his accomplice shot the 2 policemen down, but was also downed in the shootout. The accomplice was found to be carrying the defendant's pistol, as Exhibit H shows. Luckily, other officers arrived on scene to give medical aid to the officers and to the defendant, who was treated and then processed.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Haugensen.
I haven't finished.
Oh, you're taking a
still have more.
breath. Oh,
Yes,
my
ma'am.
God. Whew, okay, I'm ready.
The defense could give you misdirection and try to produce a picture of a man who is fearing for his life, or wrong place, wrong time, or even by their imagination alone go for self-defense. Mr. Juggs is a violent, convicted criminal. His previous charges are a myriad of assault and attempted murder of police officers. Be under no illusion, Your Honor, that this man is a danger to society. And the evidence does show and proves the defendant is without a doubt guilty of all charges. I finished now.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Haugensen. Wonderful. Well done. All right. Just a question for prosecution. Was the firearm returned to the owner?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Was the firearm returned to the original owner?
The shotgun, ma'am?
Yes.
I believe not.
Oh, I was just curious. All right. You rest, prosecution?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Vandeburg, is there anything you'd like to say on behalf of defense? If I could get you to speak up a little, there we go.
Rest, Your Honor.
Defense rests. All right, ladies and gentlemen, court's going to be in recess for just probably 4 minutes. I'll be right back with the verdict. Thank you.
All rise.
Thank you, Captain.
Of course, monsieur.
All right, you may be seated. Thank you, court. In the regard of the state of San Andreas versus Jeffrey Juggs, the court hereby finds Mr. Jeffrey Juggs guilty on the charge of PC 2102, attempted murder of a peace officer, guilty of PC 3207, possession of illegal contraband, guilty of PC 2234, criminal possession of police equipment, and guilty of PC 3303, illegal transfer of a non-class 2 firearms weapon. I do believe that the weapon used, the sawed-off shotgun or whatever it's called, belonged to Judge Jacques Mann, which is quite interesting. I'm unsure if the weapon was stated as stolen or not. So we'll see about that. Also at this time, Mr. Jeffrey Juggs will have an arrest warrant out for failure to appear. It is a hold until trial situation for anyone that does not appear to court. As Mr. Juggs did not appear, And all that means is that when he is arrested, he will be brought before a judge in the city to have his time and, of course, his fine given to him at that time. Ladies and gentlemen, court is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.